Welcome to the tiger sculpture project, work in progress, adding the fibre. Hello. Right, as promised, I would come back after last time making the armature. It's basically quite a long part of the process, which is adding the fibre, as in many hours. I found out, because of preparing for these presentations, that basically I do stretches of about 2.5 hours where I'm adding the fibre, and then I go on to something else to give it a rest. So the first little video I'm going to show you isn't 2.5 hours. You'll be relieved to know I've actually sped it up to about 3 minutes, and I will talk through it as well. But that was the first part, and then I've also done 2 more sessions of about 2.5 hours each to get it where it is now, which we'll talk about at the end. But it's fair to say that it's the kind of alien ugly stage, but more importantly the stage we're at is the keep the faith, because there are many times that you wonder whether it's going to make it through. And there are lots of tools to use for this, which is why we keep referring to videos and photos of the particular animal, because it helps you to look at what is it that you think is wrong, and also the things that I do to help me through that stage. But hopefully you will also see that if you ever commission me to do a piece of work for you, why I won't show you the in-between stages, because you'll be probably quite horrified to see that it looks awful for a very long time. In fact, I think I'd be quite worried if one of my pieces actually looked okay at this stage, because it's like it's too early for it to look okay. The only thing I can do is destroy it at this stage if it looked okay, because it's not actually big enough, it's not got its top coat on. Bearing in mind at this stage it's still core wool, even though I'm using yellow fibres, it's still core fibres. And what core fibres means is it's wool that's been washed and more often than not just carded. I have a carding machine. Which way shall I go? That way. I have a carding machine, and in fact in the video I use it a little bit on the yellow fibres, because it basically tangles fibres up but in a uniform way, so that I can actually stretch it and wrap it round wire, unlike combing, which is a completely different thing. And in fact I'm going to do a live this week where I'm going to talk about the different tools and things like carding machines and combing and things like that, and the differences. So that's just another lot of tools really with regards to the fibres we use. Anyway, I will play the video. Let me get us across to the video, and I will play and show you that this is where we took it from the bare armature, and basically the wrapping of the wire, and the very first layer is just literally so to attach. Sometimes I wrap pipe cleaners around, but quite often when you've twisted the wire, this especially substantial wire like I've used here, the twist is big enough to actually catch the fibres so that it doesn't twist around the wire. It just needs to be secure against the wire. And then I decided that I'd use this, the yellow core wool, so I've used my carding machines to card some more, because it was a bit clumpy basically, and I couldn't get even. And when I'm wrapping the fibres around the armature, I absolutely need to have it so that it's fairly even, so that I can know the outcome as I'm wrapping it around. Because, you know, at the moment it's a stick insect, isn't it? Basically I'm just wrapping it around until I've got to this stage where I'm now starting to build shoulders and things. So I'm becoming a bit more aware of the fact of, not muscles necessarily, but the bulk of shoulders and hind quarters, and then trying to build up the body a little bit, and the head, where I'm just really just I mean, I'm really not giving much attention to shape. It really is just adding some fibres. Tops of the legs, not bottoms of the legs, because it's the tops of the legs. Very much like the cats, you know, if you look at your domestic cats, the tops of the legs are muscular, but also there's like a skin which comes across them all, and when their legs bend, it's almost like underneath this cloth. Let's call it that. But it's just deciding how to articulate that, but also bearing in mind, I know I'm not going to have it as a standing sculpture. He's actually going to be crouching and bending to drink water. So I know I'm only going to get it to a certain stage before I actually start bending him. And actually I did that quicker than I thought I would, because quite soon we'll get to the end of this video and you'll see a couple of pictures where I did actually bend him into that crouching position. But here I'm just adding a bit more thickness around the tops of the legs, around the side, bulking him up a bit. And this is still not really hard felting, because obviously I need to be able to move him about a bit once I start bending the legs, because as we know, the muscles in the body will also move as soon as I start bending the legs. But yeah, just adding a bit more around the head. I mean, the shape of the head, we just ignore that at this stage, because when we come back to me, I will show you. Here we go. So let me just pause the video. Is that going to pause the video? No. Okay. Pause the video? Yes, pause the video. Right, will I enable me to go back and just quickly show that? Okay, so this is after I had finished the initial wrap. I then basically was adding a bit of detail of muscles and at the corners of the kind of legs and things, and then I realized I needed to now do the bend, because basically I was adding too many muscles and they would look different once I've actually bent him. So I did then bend him into shape. This is the top view. I mean, I can only say alien really at the moment, because it's not accurate. It's just me trying to get the positioning, and it's at this stage where I realise how far away I am from my final sculpture, because of just the shaping. And as I say, this is why I don't actually normally show this part of the process. I think I've got another sideways shot in a minute. Yeah, now equally, obviously I haven't done much fibre on the bottom of the legs and the tops of the legs, the muscles, but I also think I've been a bit heavy on the underbelly. But at the moment it's all about the overall, so I need to thin the neck or extend the neck and get the muscles in comparison to that. It's all comparison and working, and then once you've changed one bit, going back and looking at the other bits in comparison to it. And then I put it onto the piece of wood that he's actually going to be on at the end, to see that I can actually get him in proportion to that as well. Okay, so back to me. There we go. So hopefully that gave you a bit of an insight into that stage. That video part was about 2.5 hours work, and then I had done another 2.5, 3 hours to the 2 pictures which were on there. And then if I also bring you and show you where I am at the moment, which is In fact, if I show you that way, he looks, I keep thinking it looks like a trussed up chicken, but anyway, as you can see, he's bulked out a bit more. I still think he's a little bit too much of his underbelly. I don't think he'd be as much there. And as I kept looking at it, I realised I'm trying to get the arch in comparison to the head down, and also the shaping. So what I decided to do, which is one of my little tools that I do, which is I add clumps. Now these are literally just clumps of wool which I've felted a little bit, that I add on, and I can just pull them off as well. They're just tacked on, so I can start to see, you know, because I want to see how thick these feet are going to be in comparison, and therefore how does it sit in comparison to the head. And let me get my, and then I bring my little display piece, put him on, and actually see exactly how he's going to be and where he's bending down into the what's going to be water here, so where the tail will go down and things like that. So what I wanted to demonstrate to you was that this is a terrible stage to look at, and I think I've probably convinced you of that. Mission accomplished. But it's normal. It's normal for most of my projects I've ever done. Look, and sometimes you have a glistening moment where you think, oh yes, that's all going well, and then you realise you have to undo it all because it didn't go along with the other. You have to keep doing one. I call it obsessing. You obsess about a particular area, then you come back and look at the whole. You obsess about another area and come back and look at the whole. And it's just this constant, because there's absolutely no point in putting top layer and details on until this all fits. For instance, the head, I have made no attempt to get that shape right until I know it's at the right angle, because I love to spend a lot of time on the face and head. And if I get that right and then find I've actually got it out of proportion with the rest of it, that would just be not good. So, but also, as I say, I seem to do sessions of about 2.5 hours each project. Now that's why I have lots of projects on the go at the same time, because I get to a stage where I say I'm not improving it anymore at the moment, and in fact I'm probably making it worse, so I have to put it down. And then I go on to something else, or I might stop completely. But the whole time you're still thinking about it, and you're thinking, oh, actually, yeah, that this way, and you can play around. The great thing is that fibre sculpture is so forgiving. I always say I bow in utter respect for potters and anybody who sculpts with clay. And additionally, anybody who takes, you know, a lump of marble and chisels out and sculpts, because it's done. I mean, you've got one attempt at it. And, you know, with potters who spend all that time putting it, they could put it in the kiln and it just goes to pieces. So, you know, deepest respect. I literally can take a knife to mine. Now, I will just quickly go back to the head here. Is quite firm. I mean, he's not, you know, rock solid, but he's pretty firm. Where, and to be honest, the belly's quite firm as well, because I will be chopping some of that down. But when I say chopping some of that down, I do literally use a knife, because I'm not going to do this live and chop it in pieces, because that would be just what, traumatic for me. I don't know, it would be for you. but quite literally, because it's hard, I could just chop into that and I could slice pieces off, because it actually, it's like carving. Now obviously I only use that particular technique to take something off. Occasionally, if I was trying to define a muscle and I just couldn't get it by adding, I might put a line down with a knife, but then I would still need to add some fibre to actually soften that off. But bearing in mind, this all has to happen before you start putting the top coat on. You need to have got it right by the time you put that top coat on, because, well, there is going back. Obviously you can go back and take the whole thing off if you want to, but you've done an awful lot of work that you're undoing if you get to that stage. So lots of decisions yet to make and come to, but we'll come up with another project work in progress, which will be next Monday, but I am still going to go live tomorrow, Tuesday, and show you some of the tools that I use within my projects. So it's not just about using the needle, and traditionally the word stabbing has been used to describe the action of the needle into the wool, or I can't remember if it's in America or somewhere else where they call it poking. Anyway, some people call it poking, some people call it stabbing. To me, it is the wrong word, and other people suggest to me it just gives quite a violent act. And other needle felters, when they say to me they break needles or why are they struggling with a particular thing, I think that word stabbing doesn't help. So I think it's more of a tap. I think I'd tap because of the needle, you only use that. I mean, it's called a needle, it's nothing like a normal needle, it's got these little notches in, but the little notches are up to the little notches are only that, you know, like the first where my fingernail is, it's there. The rest of this doesn't, it's pointless. So people often stab right the way through their piece to their mat. Well, I mean, the furthest you should be stabbing is into the center of the piece. But if, like me, you've wrapped layers as you go, you should only be adding each layer on to the next layer. And if I've done something really soft before and I've then decided to harden it up, I would actually press it down with my finger and then tap it with my needle, which would then, that tapping action would manipulate the fibres as needed. So stabbing, yeah, not so much. I know tapping might sound really light, but that's enough. And I think if you think of it as a tap, it's probably a more accurate action. It probably doesn't feel satisfying in the sense that people feel like it's a bit more thrusting than that. But I think more often than not, that's what I'm doing, is tapping. So there you go. Was there anything else on my list that I needed to say? Adding fibres, chunks, forgiving. No, I think I've said everything. Brilliant. Okay, that's this stage done. As I say, my job has been done here. If I've explained to you that this is indeed the ugly stage, which you probably never want to see again. Next time I'm hoping it might be prettier, but I can't guarantee it. So I will see you next time.